Are you one of the 75% of contractors whose financial statements are inaccurate? Find out. Click on the link in the show notes and you'll get a free P&L and balance sheet check.
This is Contractor Sense with Ruth King.
Welcome to Contractor Sense. Here you discover ideas, tactics, news, and information that matters to your contracting business and you. I'm your host, Ruth King. This episode is sponsored by Financially Fit Business. Get the business tool that makes your financial statements come alive. Turn your numbers into pretty graphs so you really know where your business is trending. Go to www.financiallyfit.business and get started today. Thank you for joining us. Here's how we will help your business and you. Imagine leaving your field people alone, feeling confident that you don't have to micromanage them. You're confident that when you check up on the job, you know it will be right. How do you make this happen? My guest today, Tracy Austin, is the owner of Elevated Talent Consulting. Tracy has a proven track record teaching contractors how to inspire their crews to work harder without micromanaging. Tracy, welcome to Contractor Sense.
Thanks so much for having me today.
My pleasure. I think this is a frustration with most contractors, at least it's what we see. What do you see?
Yep, we see the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I send you out to go do this particular job, and then I go and check on it, and it's screwed up.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And what we typically find is there's two things happening. One is that there's a lack of clarity on what we're actually asking folks to do. That's number one. And number two is we weren't clear on what we were asking for to begin with, which essentially takes us back to thing number one.
Yes, absolutely. So what you're saying is it's something that we have to do to communicate very clearly, have clear policies and procedures set up. Am I putting words in your mouth?
Yes, and that feels like a lot of work to me.
Yes, it is a lot of work because you're not going to do that.
Right. So here's how I like to bring it forward, which is I love when I'm first talking with a client is to have them give me what their complaints are.
Okay.
Right. So, it's so easy for us to come up with complaints. And so, like, if we think about, well, Joe didn't do this on the job. Okay. So help me understand what Joe didn't do. Well, he didn't make sure that all of the nails were at exactly the same spot when he was putting trim up, so they look like they're all over the place, and then he didn't go back and fill them in. Therefore, the job looks incomplete. Okay, amazing. So what is the result that you want? Then he'll tell me, hey, the end product that I want here is, I want everything flush. I want to ensure that, everything is measured correctly, that we don't have any gaps. I want to ensure that, the nails are all even when they're put in, both within the trim, but also in a row. And I want to ensure that we go back and we fill it in with a putty so that when we stain it, it really looks like it wasn't there. But if it does, at least they're not all over the place. I say, great. When you asked Joe what to do, how did you ask him to do it? Well, I just asked him to put the trim up. You said, okay. So
what did he say?
He goes, well, I don't think I should have to do that. And I said, amazing. But what's the results if we don't explain what we actually want or need? Well, they don't do it right. Like, of course they don't, because we haven't clearly communicated what good looks like.
Yeah. Or what proper installation looks like.
Right, exactly. And so, a key here is something that we call definitions. Let's define what we want something to look like or to be done. And now that will become the expectation for the team. But then any new team member that comes in, we need to, acclimate them to our definitions of done or of good or whatever that is.
So what, as you were relating this story and talking about, well, I shouldn't have to do that. Well, what was going through my head was nobody can read your mind.
Absolutely. And on the flip side, we'll say that this is Jerry, right? Jerry's the supervisor, and Jerry's going, I've been doing this for 30 years. Why do I have to explain it every time? Well, guess what? This is a brand new person to you. You have the 30-year experience. They don't. So as we bring them on, we're going to go slow to end up going fast later.
Yeah. And I think if your experience is right, if you go slow in the beginning, it really does turn out right, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so we have what we call our new hire buddy program. And, so we're training folks that are excellent craftsmen or craftspeople in their role to get some leadership skills. And then we're creating, a 90-day onboarding plan for them that has all of these expectations written out, along with questions to talk with their buddies about, along with an actual, almost an observation with then the supervisor to go through it. And so that's how we start operationalizing these so that it doesn't feel so hard every time we have a new project or bring a new person in.
Yeah, I can see doing this, and I think the listener's gonna go, "Oh my gosh, this is so much work." But is it
Mhm.
really?
Right. Right. And here's the thing, if we start small, like you're not going to start by creating a new hire buddy program. That's overwhelming. We're not starting there. We're starting with what is today's complaint? And then we're going to define it. We're going to go back and coach our team on it. And then we're going to go to the next one and the next one. And what happens is this starts snowballing in a very positive way.
Yeah, this is a positive snowball. This is not a avalanche going down a hill snowball.
No, we're building a snowman. I mean, he's
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah. And so how long I mean, once you start with the first one, how long does it normally take to go from 1 to 2?
What I say is it depends, and it depends on consistency. And it depends upon, are we doing this with everyone that's out there? Because once we start doing it, and it's like, okay, well, I know if I go talk to Tracy, she's going to ask me some questions. You know, and she now has shared with me the expectation that I do before I come forward with a complaint, right? Now all of a sudden that chatter starts to happen and we do see it happening. What I will say is it takes 7 to 10 times for folks to hear things and the accountability on the follow through with it. So if you try this 3 or 4 times, but then just start giving the answer or like throwing your hands up and be like, it never works. We're never going to learn it. Guess what? It's going to take a lot
Not
longer than it
longer.
is when we stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we take a break, Tracy, if somebody wants to talk to you and get your help with, the buddy program or the processes and procedures, how do they do that?
Yeah, we have something called our Tough Talk audit, and I'll give you the link so you can have that for your show notes. But if you want to have, a conversation with me, go ahead and download that Tough Talk audit so you can kind of see how to walk through these steps. And then there's a spot on there to schedule a call with me.
Very good. We will be right back. Thanks for listening to Contractor Sense. Imagine you had total freedom. You didn't have to worry about money. You didn't have to be a slave to your business. The words, I can't, are eliminated from your vocabulary. What if you could do what you want to do, whenever you want to do it? A financially fit business could give you that freedom. How? By knowing what your financial statements are telling you and taking action based on what they say. You can do this in less than 10 minutes a month, at an investment of less than taking your family out to dinner once a month. And if your financial statements are a mess, you can get help. Go to www.financiallyfit.business or click on the QR code below to get started today. We're back. Thanks for listening to Contractor Sense. I'm talking with Tracy Austin, who is the owner of Elevated Talent Consulting. Tracy, I was remiss in the beginning in giving you a minute to talk about what is Elevated Talent Consulting. So let's start there in this section.
Absolutely. So, Elevated Talent Consulting supports trade organizations in building their people strategies. And so, essentially, we work with people to ensure that they have fulfilling work by really changing the culture.
Got it. And so we have the buddy programs and getting rid of all of this inconsistency and, not having to micromanage anymore. Can you imagine how great the world would be with that micromanaging?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And some of those frustrations start to shift because we're no longer putting out fires. And I'm not saying there's never going to be fires or there's never going to be misunderstandings, but what it does is it elevates our expectations of folks because we're bringing them into the thought process that we have. So we do a lot of work and training with mid-level managers on how to implement these. And then we do a lot of coaching with those same leaders as well.
Do you ever get resistance from field people who just don't want to do this and they don't want to be responsible for communicating?
Oh, all of the time.
No, but, I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
how do you
Right.
deal with that? I mean, because somebody wants to be, a field supervisor, but they're not willing to put in the work to make it happen.
So I love what you just said. Someone wants to be a field supervisor, but they're not willing to put in the work. My question is, do you really want to be a field supervisor?
Yeah,
Right.
I
So,
want the title and the money, but I don't want the responsibility. How's that? Yep.
yeah. And you know what? Then we may need to show them a different future. So, and that's one of the reasons why we love our new hire buddy program is because it gives folks an opportunity to try on people leadership before they're put in a leadership role. Because guess what? Some folks are much better at project leadership than people leadership. And we want to always ensure we have the right people in the right role. But a key thing here is showing folks what the benefit to them is. And, which is why I always love starting with complaints and saying, hey, tell me about your day. And tell me about if you could take, you know, some tasks or some of those conversations out of your day because you don't feel like that they add to the productivity you want, what would it be? And it's typically handling these people issues. And then my next question is, well, what if we could solve that? Would you be willing to put in the work to solve it? Well, maybe, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that's typically how we started. And of course, I get a lot of pushback that's like, well, people just don't want to work anymore. And, but we're always going to have new people and it's all this turnover. Okay, but what if we lessened that turnover? And then the question is like, well, where's this worked before? I'm like, got a case study. Do you want it? Yeah, sure. Like, and there is something about proof in the pudding. And we do have a case study on our website where, we saved a cement or a concrete contractor about $500,000 in the first 6 months just by implementing these strategies. And first and foremost, it's hiring the right person for the right role. And then secondly, we want to ensure that they have the tools to be successful. But how we talk about our people is so important because if, I catch whiff that, a client is talking, negatively about me, but yet still wants to employ me, I'm probably not going to want to give as much to that client as I am to another client that is collaborating with me. And so often I hear our leaders talk negatively about their team. And, I really ask the question to say, hey, what's really going on? And how do we shift the mindset to really support our team? Because if you don't believe they're going to be successful, they're not.
No. And if you think there's no good workers out there, there aren't any. I mean,
Exactly.
it drives me crazy because will it be a little bit more difficult to find the right person? Yes. However, they are out there. You just have to find them.
And you have to know what you want. And so often I find people don't have any idea what they want. Well, you just want somebody that shows up every day. Okay, that's great. Can we add a couple more pieces to it? And here's the thing when the person shows up that isn't on your list, why are we hiring them? Well, I
Well, I
need
need
a body.
body. Yeah, that's the answer.
All right. Well, how's that body doing for you? Is it giving you headaches? Because if so,
Now it's
do we
making it
want to do this
worse,
differently?
actually. It's making
Yeah,
it
exactly. Exactly.
so. Yeah, it's really interesting to listen because what you say is so true. It takes, all right, getting it out of your head onto paper and communicating what you really and truly want because as we both have said, nobody can read your mind.
Hmm. And so often they don't know what they want either.
That's a problem.
Yeah, and that's where, working with a seasoned HR professional or working with a consultant and using some of those assessments saves you so much time and money on the back end. And I get like HR is one of those things outside of compliance that kind of falls to the last of the list, especially with some of the smaller contractors we work with. However, once these things are in place and we start to shift the culture, how fast things start to go is pretty incredible.
Yeah. Because everybody's well, not everybody, but the people who are there would be my guests start talking about how much more fun it is to work here. And they talk to their friends about how great a day they had, and their friends looking at and like, is there any job openings over there?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, I literally had one of my clients had one of their techs in front of him call one of her buddies and say, "Hey, you still like it over wherever he was?" And he starts grumbling, says, "No, come over here and fill out an application. It's a great place to work." Literally what she did. It was amazing.
Incredible. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the type of culture that we like to create, obviously. So, final thoughts.
So, the final thought that I have is really pay attention to what your thoughts are. If you're complaining about something, get super curious about the request that you're actually making.
Okay, very good. All right, Tracy, thanks so much for being with us. I will put the link in the show notes so that everybody can take it and then schedule a time to talk with you or whomever in your organization. And I appreciate you being with us in Contractor Sense.
Thanks so much for having me.
And thanks to all of you for joining us. Choose one thing you discovered and implement it in your business. These ideas, tactics, and strategies help you make more money, have more free time, and give back. If you like today's program, spread the word. Please review this podcast on any device you're listening to it on. Help a fellow contractor make more money too. For comments or questions, call me at 770-729-0258 or email Ruth King at hvacchannel.tv. Thanks for listening. Have a great and profitable day.